Good afternoon. We are going to, am I, yeah, we are going to stand at ease just a few minutes. We're waiting on a couple of the members. We had a little late session this morning. We had a chairman's luncheon, so we got some folks to be here shortly. So if y'all will just hang with us, we'll get this going. And I will go ahead and tell you, we are going to vote one way or the other on these. This is not just a hearing on either one of them. We're gonna vote. Okay. So we'll be back with you in just a little bit. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Before we get started, we're going to ask Representative Mac Jackson if he'll say a word of prayer for us.
Chairman. Heavenly Father, as we come before you, we thank you for this day, Lord, for this is the day that you have made, and we will rejoice in it and be glad. We ask for your leading, your guidance, your wisdom as we do the business of this great state of Georgia, Father. We know that you have it and you'll give it to us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Representative Jackson. Representative Ballinger, go ahead. There we go.
Okay.
My
there
bad.
we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring before you House Bill 1358. I am working from LC 393321S. So please make sure that we're all working off the same LC number. This act shall be known and may be cited as the Chairman John Meadows Act in honor of our late great leader who was chair of rules for so long and such a great promoter and staunch advocate of the Second Amendment. Then you get down to the second part down there is also dealt with in there's another number 2. It just gets renumbered. And basically to bring it in line with the permitless carry language that we use throughout. I will bring your attention, there is an important definition at 66, meaning lawful weapons carrier, means any person who is licensed or eligible for a license pursuant to Code Section 1611-129 and who is not otherwise prohibited by law from possessing a weapon or long gun. Any resident of any other state who would otherwise be eligible to obtain a license pursuant to such code section, but for the residency requirement, and any other person licensed to carry a weapon in any other state. It then further goes on to some more of the definitions. We obviously strike without a valid weapons carry license. Some of this is just going to be kind of language changes to incorporate not only those that have a weapons carry permit, but those who do not have a weapons carry permit. Basically, this bill will allow one in the same, their treatment to be one in the same. So a person with a license carry permit will be treated essentially the same as somebody without a license carry permit. They will have the same, the idea being that you should have to have a card from the government to exercise your Second Amendment rights. So that's why it's called permitless carry, because it would allow for you to carry with or without that card from the probate court. Some language bringing that. And, again, on 130, I'm on 139 now. It just strikes any person with a valid weapons carry license and it strikes that language and says lawful weapons carrier. So really we're just kind of trading one definition for another, much broader, that brings us much more into line, I think, with the thoughts and feelings of our Georgians. Again, on 192, we have license holders stricken through and bring it into line with persons who are lawful weapons carriers. Same thing on 9, same thing on 10. And stop me if anybody has any specific questions. I just don't want to belabor the point. The specific point is that in most of this, 90% of this language is just striking weapons carry permit holder to lawful weapons carrier. So I just don't want to belabor that point, but certainly am very happy to answer any questions you might have with regards to this. Again, firearms shall be furnished to each judge or probate court within the state at no cost. And this is talking about the people who this is some of the prohibitors that would not make somebody a lawful weapons carrier if they violated some of these, which includes, we've stricken carrying a weapon without a weapons carry permit, obviously we're moving away from that, and carrying a weapon or long gun in unauthorized location in violation of Code Section 1611-127. Again, we're just moving towards away from that permit carrier language and into weapons carrier. And I'm just kind of checking through, making sure that there's nothing is going to jump out at me. But I don't really see anything. Does the committee have any questions?
We do have one question.
Sure.
Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative, for the bill. Just one question. I didn't read the whole bill and you were explaining it. This basically means that a person can carry a weapon in these places that's in the bill without a permit. It's taking away the requirement.
You can still exercise we're not increasing. We're just not saying, we are saying is that you do not have to have a weapons carry permit to exercise your Second Amendment rights as you do right now. So do you have a specific question? Is there something that's sticking out at you? So in other words, things that were prohibited before are still prohibited. For example, everybody knows I carry campus carry. One of the, excluded places were dorm rooms. Dorm rooms are still excluded, with or without the permit. So those places that were excluded before, they're still excluded. The places that were permitted before are still permitted.
Okay.
Any other questions? Having seen none, we could make a motion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. I appreciate your consideration.
All right, Representative Jaspers. I have this House Bill 1378, LC 393256. Is that what y'all have them from you? LC 393256. All right. Representative Jaspers, it's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry about that. Chairman of the committee, when you work on a bill like any of these Second Amendment bills, you got to thank a lot of people. And I have a local guy in my community, Jeff Anderson, who is a great Second Amendment promoter and helper with me on all this. He lets me question him and go back and forth on that. And I really appreciate Jeff Anderson. But if we look through the bill, I'll go through it. This is a multi-part bill, so it does take a minute just to kind of go through it. But you've seen it all before. There's nothing this subcommittee hasn't seen. This was in part of House Bill 218 that we voted on. We the Senate added to it. Chairman Ballinger elected to remove it, to move the reciprocity language through. So these are the four things that are in there that were in that bill, and also church carry. If you look in section 1, it's places prohibited to carry a weapon. All we're doing here is crossing out the place of worship, and doing this, we're making places of worship private property. And the church can do whatever they want. They can prohibit, they cannot, they can be silent on it. The current is confusing. The penalty is insignificant, but it's written now, but now they will be treated as a common trespass crime if they choose to in a church that prohibits. In section 2, this is a request due to COVID closures and whatever the future may bring. It will allow the online application and renewal and accept renewal by mail by the probate judge. As we know, in a renewal, no fingerprints required, but they do run the NCIC federal background check. I think it's good to know that. Also in section 2, it prohibits a database. Creating a database by some probate judges was possibly a good intention thought, in attempting to remind people when their renewal license came about. My suggestion to them is when they're in there getting their original permit, they get their phone out and put 5 years from now is when you need to renew it. And just that way it will remind you, because it is easy to forget. I have forgotten once to do that and had to pay extra. There is a penalty to prohibit, and some question why. Well, if you don't have a penalty to prohibit, some will do it. And this just clears that up. In section 3, this is the one where we're asking local governments to sell accumulated weapons. And, they do acquire many over a year. The section requires a sale of these unclaimed weapons once every 12 months when they have 5 or more in the possession of the county. Again, just like in the previous section, we have a trigger to force some to sell in line 108 because some will not do it. In section 4, under the declared state of emergency, firearms, ammunition, reloading supplies cannot be seized. Also prohibit the manufacturer sale during prior to a declared state of emergency. Also to close or limit the hours of operation unless all businesses are closed. So this is not going to let single them out to be open when everybody else is closed, but if everyone's closed, they're closed. And the same with ranges. And in section 5, it just relates back to the emergency powers. It's just a cleanup language related to seizures during a state of emergency. Mr. Chairman, that's our bill. I'll be glad to answer any questions as my co-signer, Chairman Powell, joins. Would you like to add anything, Mr. Chairman?
Good bill. Good bill.
Will you take some questions?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, we have one. Representative Mack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Jaspers. One question I've got, church, on the church part that you talked about, do I still have to put up signs at the church?
Yes, sir. They'd have to notify and ask somebody to retreat if they would. If they didn't, it'd be a trespass.
Okay. And you said churches would be designated as
Private property. It'd be out of the code section right here. So now they'd be treated just like any other restaurant. You've seen that. Anywhere else, this is private property. They can do as they choose.
Thank you.
Representative Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question on section 2, and I'm not sure if this applies, but my probate judge had been concerned as she's giving out permits, and she has requested data from the sheriffs on somebody's background in a background check. And often it comes back where the cases have not been adjudicated yet. And there was a recent court case in December where she indicated that the court, or she could be penalized if she does not give them the permit right away. And she really doesn't know the outcome of their cases yet. Does this affect that in any way?
No, ma'am, it wouldn't. Should still be under the cover of that court case that's confusing the issue. I think many
It did
times.
confuse it.
Yeah, I think many times the paperwork trail isn't complete. And also someone who's been charged with a crime or even convicted doesn't know the process to get back.
Mhm.
There's a very clear process on someone who's been convicted, and after the certain time period, which is in code, that they can renew their, just get their rights back. But they've got to follow a very
Well, this
clear
is a case where they
pathway.
hadn't been adjudicated. I think
At
they
all.
had 4 felonies and none of them had been adjudicated yet. And they came in and applied for a gun.
So they've been charged with it,
Right,
but
but
not convicted.
it's not been adjudicated because the courts are so backed up.
Yeah,
And so they came in for a permit. So
I think. Yeah, go ahead.
Under the current law, if you go in, it's almost like a mental health case. If you go in to apply for a permit,
mhm.
the judge can refuse to give you that
Okay.
permit. And then it's be up to those that are denied the right to file suit against them for hearing. So then they can,
Okay.
that judge doesn't have to do that.
Okay, she still has that authority.
As she does.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Just to add to Chairman Powell, if a probate judge does that, that next step is in the Superior Court where they'll flesh it out there.
Okay,
So there's a pathway to a solution.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Any other discussion on that? I think we've had a couple of folks to sign up to speak to the bill. We'll do that at this time. If Mr. John Monroe, if when you come up, if you'd introduce yourself and tell us who you're with, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. John Monroe, I'm the Vice President of GA2A, also an attorney here in Georgia practicing in the area of civil and criminal litigation regarding gun laws. I'd like to thank Chairman Jaspers for bringing the bill. GA2A strongly supports it. I'd point out that there are 6 states in the country that criminalize carrying guns in churches. Georgia is one of them. So we're in the very small minority there. So we think it's appropriate to change that. Guns have been banned in churches in Georgia since 1871. It was passed right after the Civil War. It was a bill, basically it was a Jim Crow bill. So it's high time we repeal that. The rest of the bill, I think, is basically enforcement mechanisms for existing law. We support that. I was the lawyer actually that did the case that Representative Taylor asked about. I can say that the gentleman there had been arrested for carrying or pointing a gun or pistol at another 20 years previously. He was never prosecuted. It wasn't a matter of the courts being backed up. He was just arrested and never prosecuted. But he was still denied a license. And that's why the Supreme Court reversed that denial. And now he's been ordered, the probate judge has been ordered to grant him a license. With that, Your Honor, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Sorry, force of habit.
Do we have any questions? Mr. Monroe, I see none, but thank you for being here with us today.
All right, thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much. Let's see, we have Mr. Mike Griffin. If you'll introduce yourself and tell us who you're with, please, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mike Griffin. I'm the Public Affairs Representative with the Georgia Baptist Mission Board. And we're here in support of this legislation. Georgia Baptists represent over 1 million citizens in our state and over 3,000 churches. And a matter of fact, in 2021, we passed a resolution on church safety and security. And I'll read to you that last, be it finally resolved, it says that the Georgia Baptist Convention encourages the Georgia General Assembly to continue supporting and implementing legislation based on the autonomy of the local church to make decisions in regard to the use of weapons on its property. Therefore, we support this legislation, and we have worked hard in making sure that the safety issues and security issues are dealt with in our church. We were the only faith group and I think denomination that even supported, I think, the 2015 legislation here, and Representative Powell brought it forward. And so we would encourage your support. We thank Representative Jaspers for bringing this legislation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Griffin. Do you have any questions? Mr. Griffin, we don't have any questions. Thank you for coming today. With that being said, or is any other questions from the committee? If not, I'd like to entertain I have a motion, have a second. All in favor? All opposed? Passed. Carries. This meeting be adjourned. Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before you dismiss, there's someone here of a distinction that I think the members need to recognize. I walked by Judge Stevens just a minute ago, Judge Locke Stevens from Clark County, a distinguished former member of this house before he moved into where he could make a living. Locke,
Thank you for being here today. Thank you very much.
and my old seatmate.
We are dismissed. Thank you.